Hi, I'm Ben Shelley, and in this tutorial we'll be doing some simple studio lighting and rendering for an animated phone in Maya. This tutorial is suitable for beginners to Maya, and we'll be focusing on getting some quick results with the least amount of work possible, leaving more advanced lighting and rendering techniques and superior quality settings for another day. Previous modelling tutorials should have helped you create this clean and efficiently modelled phone. If I turn wireframe on shaded, we can see that we've set it up to allow us to capture the essential highlights at the rendering stage. Sometimes the bevels that we've used to do this, even though they're great, they sometimes aren't enough, and we want to try and get some even smoother edges if possible. The best way to counter this, if you're not going to be importing this into a games engine or anything like that, is just to select all your meshes and press 3 and watch how everything changes. You can see everything becomes a lot more curved, and if I turn wireframe on shaded off, we can see that it does look quite nice now. But as soon as we do this, we do notice some nasty artifacts around things here, and this is to do with the fact that we might not have enough edges going along. So the smooth preview, or the pressing 3 to smooth, is best controlled by the number of edge loops that you have in your geometry. The more you have, the more control you have over how close these corners are, and if you don't have enough edges on it, things can get quite stretched out and it will look quite obvious in the rendering stage. But because we've modelled this phone quadratically and quite neatly, we can go ahead and add some edges to this. So I've clicked on the edge loop tool, which you should have in your shelves, and I'm placing an edge quite close to the end of this there, and this should contain some of that stretching that we saw earlier. Now it didn't stretch up very much because we have lots of detail up there, but left and right there's nothing for it to hit until it gets to the end of the phone. So I'm just going and I'm going to add another edge here, and if I press 3 it should look a bit better. If I just deselect everything, that looks fine. Again, it's getting quite stretched along there. We can see that if we go from 1 to 3, the new edge that we've added does jump quite far away, and again we can control this by adding one more along there, and now when we press 3 it does look a lot better. In fact, I'm going to add one more there and there as well, just so we have full control over that earpiece shape. So if we go down to the base of the phone as well, I'm just going to double check that this is okay. Okay, we do have some stretching going on. I can go along and add and just close those off like this. That'll do. There's a piece of geometry inside this phone that I don't want to smooth. It's the bit that sort of fills up the area here, so I'm just going to look inside the phone and select this rounded rectangle shape here and just press 1, and because I modelled it with smooth edges and we can't even see the corners of it, I'm just going to leave it as it is, and that'll be fine. I'm going to put another one there and there. Much better. The next thing I'm going to do is start to set this scene up ready for rendering. So I can get rid of our construction plane there, and I just highlighted it and pressed delete. So the next step is to add a camera so that we can get the angle we want, and we can continue to jump in and out of the camera as we continue to set the scene up. So let's go to create, cameras, camera, and then go to panels, perspective, camera 1. If I scroll out, I can have a look around and get it lined up to where I want. This phone is going to be for a promotional video, and I want it to be on its side. At the moment the phone is not in a group. If I go to Window, Outliner, I can see that the phone is not grouped at all. So all I'm going to do is select everything and do Control G. And now if I click on any piece of geometry and press up on the keyboard, I can select the group. I'm going to press E, and double checking that I've got 45 degrees in my step size, so I can do discrete rotate, type in 45, press enter, uncheck discrete rotate, and then press J. I can rotate my phone like this. I'm going to move it forward and turn it at a slight angle like this. and that would be great. So in the promotional video, I wouldn't mind if the phone's somewhere around there. That would be quite nice. We could turn it at a slight angle if we like, just so we can see some of the hard work that we've put into the sides and base of this phone. If we want to lock the camera in place so that we can't accidentally move out, and which is going to kind of get annoying when we start to do some corrections to our renders later, we can click on the select camera button and then the camera attributes, and on the right hand side you'll see the camera attributes pop up. If I click on the layer channel box here, I can select all the attributes and right click and go to lock selected, and they should get grayed out. If you knew that you were going to animate the camera later on, it might be better to keyframe everything at frame 1, and whenever you move the camera, it will bounce back whenever you wiggle the timeline. But I've locked this camera position now. So if I go to panels perspective, I can zoom out and I can see my camera and the phone there. Now, next step, let's give this phone a very simple animation to give it some life in the final project. First of all, let's set the number of frames that we would like. I only want 2 seconds for the shot of the phone. So I'm going to type in 48 for the duration of the Maya scene here. The next step is to keyframe it at the beginning. So I'm going to select the whole group, and because I haven't frozen transformations or anything yet, the rotate pivot is still at a nice angle for us. I don't want to rotate it too much. Turn it to about there, and then press S, and this is a very lazy way of animating. This will keyframe everything to do with the phone, its visibility and all those unnecessary things, but again, this is really a tutorial for those people that might be running out of time and need to get quick results. So again, I'm just going to press S, and then we can slide between the beginning and the end, and the phone's got quite a nice tail in it like that. I know that the animation does have it's slow to start with, speeds up in the middle, and then it's slow at the end. If anything, I want that to be the other way round, but at the very least I can smooth these curves out so the phone's rotating at a constant speed. So I'll go to Window, Animation Editors, Graph Editor. With the phone selected, I can see its animation curves here. If I zoom out, I'm just going to select all the curves and click on straighten them using this button there, and then you might not notice it too much, but the phone is now turning in a constant manner there, which is what we want. Okay, I'm not too happy at the moment with the camera position. If I click on resolution gate, I can see what's going on here. I'm just going to change my render settings to something that's the right aspect ratio. So I'm going to go to presets and go to HD 720 and press close. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that animation. Now let's double check from inside the camera how this looks. I go to panels perspective at camera 1. If I put the resolution gate on with this button there, I can see that first of all it's at the wrong aspect ratio. So I'm going to go to render settings in the common tab and scroll down, and in the presets go to HD 720. This should be the right aspect ratio, and I can see now that the phone doesn't clip outside of the screen. If anything, we could zoom in just a bit, because I know I can resize this later, but I'm quite happy with that for now. In fact, I would like to move the camera slightly over the top of the phone a bit more so that the viewers can see the on-screen text slightly better. So I'm going to go select my camera and click on channel box over there, and then I can select all my attributes, go to unlock selected, move my camera up. I might just focus it on the phone, then I can pan around it and move it to about there. So again, you can play around with this to your heart's content. I'm going to be quite happy with that actually. So it's a bit more straight on, and then I can go back to my camera attributes up here, making sure I've got it selected, and then I'll go to select the camera and then re-lock everything. The next step, I want to add some shaders to this device. I'm going to be really lazy and only add 2 shaders. So I'm going to select the main face of the phone here and assign a mental ray shader to it. So if I go assign new material, I'm probably going to see, I'm lucky, the mental ray materials has popped up here. For some of you this might not happen. You just have to go to Window, Settings, Preferences, plugin manager and scroll down to the bottom and you'll see your Maya TOMR. Just make sure that that is loaded and auto-loaded as well for future use, and then press close. Now if you go to assign new material, you should see a mental ray drop down there. I'm just going to click on that and I'm going to choose MIA Material X, and then I can go to the MIA Material X1 tab over here. And the reason I use mental ray materials for most of my things like this is that they have a really good set of presets, and if we lose track of our tab for our textures like I just did, it's probably because we've got loads of history that I don't need to see anymore. So I can select all my geometry and go to delete history. This won't delete your animations, don't worry. Go to MIA Material X1, and then in the viewport, MIA materials, mental ray materials do look very ugly, and they just come up as pure black if you're not lucky. So, but you can see the preview of the sample there. I'm going to assign a preset to this phone. I'll just move this out of the way so you can see the presets that pop up. If I go to presets, we're going to apply a glossy plastic to this. You do have the option of replacing it completely, which is what I'll do, or you can blend it with another preset as well. So you can have a glossy plastic / chrome or whatever you want, or the glass or something, and they can look quite nice. We're going to do glossy plastic and then do replace, and you'll get a coloured shader pop up here. We do not want to have a beige phone. We want it to be pure black, and we want to put the reflectivity up quite high. Glossiness we can pull up to about 0.5. We can worry about glossy samples later. That'll do for now. I'm also going to apply this material to this back face here that's going between the phone and the metal part. We can choose later if we want to assign something different, but for now I'm going to go assign existing material, MIA Material X1. Again, if you do have the time, you can rename this to Plastic Glossy. I'm now going to apply a material to the outside of the phone, so I'll select that and then go to right click, assign new material, and then I'll go to mental ray materials, MIA Material X, and presets. I do want a sort of a chrome color on this. Even better would be a satined metal texture, but that can give some undesirable results with the smooth shading on our model. So I'm going to cheat and use, again, glossy plastic, and then go to replace. Sorry, that might be off screen there. I just clicked on replace. Let's rename this to phone metal. I'm going to change the color to a grey, so completely colorless, but slightly off white there, quite a bit darker there. And I will then go to presets and then Chrome. Move this in even more. Presets, Chrome, and then I'm going to go to blend by 25%. So that means we'll have 75% of our shiny plastic and 25% chrome, like that. Okay, and so we can see there it did change. We get slightly better highlights, but we do retain this color. If we set it to be chrome completely, it would come out quite dark, as we don't have a whole lot going on in the environment around it. So again, I'm cheating and putting 75% of a glossy plastic onto there as well, but no one will know. Okay, I want this phone to be on a transparent background, but I would like there to be some reflections of some fake light boxes and a subtle environment in the phone's screen as well. And this will also enable us to get some nice highlights on other elements too. Okay, now we're going to add some light to the scene. So first of all, let's go to Create Lights. Let's do an area light and pull it out from the center of the grid, and we can enlarge it slightly. If we pan around it, what I'm going to do first is if you press spacebar, and then in one of the other orthographic views, we can just go to panels, perspective, and then you're free to jump between your perspective view and your camera one view. So in my perspective view, I can see there's a line coming out of the area light here. This is showing us where the light's going to be shining. The direction it will be shining is that way, which is great. So I can angle this to a similar angle to the phone, make it slightly bigger and pull it up and out a bit. So if I go and jump into my camera one view and do a quick test render, I can see how this looks. Okay, so everything's looking okay as I thought there. So that's good. We've got a couple of highlights coming along there. Let's sort this light out. We can maybe, in a perspective view, move it slightly up closer to the phone there. I can duplicate it as well, so we've got another one firing at the phone from this side, and I can maybe duplicate and do one more just coming from this corner down here. Okay, that'll do. Let's see how this looks. If I go to my camera 1 view and preview that, we should have a bit more light in the scene. Okay, so if I move this over there a second, I've got some bright stuff going on. If I go to my perspective view, okay, so I'm going to move this again slightly out of shot. I can decrease the intensity, in fact, of all these lights as well. I'm going to bring it down to 0.7, 0.7, 0.7, and redo the previous render. Okay, so they're slightly more subtle now, which is great. I'm going to make this one just aim at the phone a bit more and move it up a bit closer there as well, and redo that previous render. That's quite nice. Again, let's move it slightly closer in and make that one slightly larger and further up. So the next thing I'll do, I'm going to change the intensity of this one just to about 0.9. It's a bit brighter. And now we're going to add some light strips in the ceiling for it to reflect as well. If I duplicate this and make it just fire above there. So quite a few lights now. If I do that. Okay, I'm going to drag the intensity of this light at the top down to like 0.2 and see if that helps. Cool, I'm quite happy with that. So we've got 4 lights. We've got 3 fairly bright ones here and quite a dull one from the top overall, which you could say would be just giving us a slight hint of what might be reflected from a ceiling if we had one. Let's add some strip lights in the ceiling now. So I'm going to drag a rectangle out to here, a polygonal plane, and assign a new material and assign a surface shader to it, and change the out color to pure white. And then if I move it above the phone and make it quite a bit wider, and make sure it's definitely above the camera as well, just enlarge that a bit, and I can just maybe add 1 or 2 more. If I go to my camera 1 view, and I'm going to save this render here just so I can compare them to see which I like more. If I render that, here we go. We can now see we've got some light strips going along there, which does look quite nice. I want them to be slightly fatter though. Just make them slightly fatter like that, and move them away from each other a bit. Okay, that's quite nice there. I'm just going to make them slightly more further apart, like this, if I'm being really picky. Okay, and then do one last test render here. And then if I go to my camera 1 view and then just go to the middle, let's say frame 24, I'll save this image, and let's just see what the reflections are like in frame 24, just to make sure there's something interesting going on. So we've got this shape that's popping in just at the end there. So this one would disappear off the phone and this one would come in. If we go to the end, so I'll save that, and then if we go to the end here, let's see how this looks. Okay, so that's coming in quite nicely there as well. So last thing I'll do is just make them a tiny bit wider so we don't have quite as long where we can't see anything, and I'm sure that'll be fine. And then if we go to our plastic glossy shader that we set up, I can change the color of the reflections to something slightly brighter, and then we can just see what effect this has on our phone as well. So if I save that and then render this with a slightly brighter setting, great. So that's not too bad at all. So I changed the color almost up to pure white, not quite, and that has helped us there. We've got these other lights giving us some nice highlights on the edges of our phone there as well. So if we look at the quality of this, we can see it isn't too bad. This is some really simple lighting setup, so we haven't got to worry about noise or anything else just yet. But in the render settings, if we have a look at these, I've set the quality to 1. Obviously we're in unified sampling. Minimum samples 1, maximum samples 12, which will be just fine. I haven't got any other settings set up for this. That should do for now. And in common, I've got HD 720. Now if I want to render this out as an animation, I would have to go change the image format to a PNG or a TIFF. I change the animation extension to name number ext, trying to avoid a full stop if I can, so it doesn't confuse After Effects in the naming convention. So as soon as it sees that there's a number after the name, we know it's an animation, so we can put frame padding up to 2 or 3, start frame 1, end frame 48, and HD 720 is good for now. And finally, we'll just make sure we've got the correct camera. So at the moment it's perspective, which is not what we want. We need to make sure we've got camera 1, or whatever you've named it, selected, and then we can close that off. We can go to File, Set Project, and make sure that the correct project is set, and then you're free to batch render. Just double check you've got the right number of cores manually typed in there to speed up your renders, and then you can see how it looks when it's all finished. Okay, you may want to spend more time perfecting the reflections on your own, but this is fine for what we need, so now we can move on to setting up the screen.